on Indianapolis This Week. She has been named as John Gregg's running mate in the race for governor. Now we sit down with Christina Hale about the campaign ahead and what she hopes to bring to the ticket. He's one of the country's most respected voices on foreign policy. Now we're talking with former Senator Richard Lugar about Donald Trump and the GOP candidate's international plans. President Obama comes to Indiana to take aim at Republicans all around the country.
From RTV6, Indianapolis This Week.
Thank you for joining us for Indianapolis This Week. We're very excited to be back with you after last week's incredible Indianapolis 500 that you watched live right here on RTV6. Now let's start this morning talking about another race, the race for governor. Just 11 days ago, John Gregg announced State Representative Christina Hale as his choice for lieutenant governor in this year's campaign. Hale has now been in the legislature since 2013 and has been a leader in the ongoing fight against sexual assault on women. And let's bring in State Representative Christina Hale. Christina, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Great to see you. Congratulations on joining the ticket. And let's start here. What do you think you bring to this ticket with John Gregg?
Well, I believe the ability to govern. You know, I've not been elected in the state legislature for very long, but in my short time there, I was able to collaborate with my colleagues from both sides of the aisle to get more than 60 bills passed. But I have job experience in the private sector, the public sector, and actually I was my first real job, as they say, I was a newspaper reporter for the LaPorte Herald-Argus. So I really come to this from a multiplicity of perspectives and experiences, and I'm just very excited.
What are your thoughts on John Gregg himself?
John Gregg is known to be an effective leader, a good man, and a kind man. He's got his eye on practical solutions for people here in Indiana, and he's just driven to do good things for people.
You have known him for a long time. Is the John Gregg running right now the same John Gregg that ran 4 years ago?
I'd say he might be a rebooted John Gregg. He's certainly...
How so?
He's just so energized and practical and down to earth, and he's just doing great things for people and working really hard.
There has been a lot of talk, of course, about Indiana's economy and a debate over how strong the Hoosiers' economy is right now when it comes to jobs, the quality of those jobs. Your take on Indiana's economy right now?
I challenge that a little bit. You know, Indiana's per capita income has declined by 4 points over the past 4 years during the Pence administration. In fact, we've been slipping per capita income since 1962, household income since the early 2000s. So, you know, I've heard the governor claim that more Hoosiers are working today than ever before, but our wages certainly are not keeping up with that, and people are feeling that in their pocketbook.
Do you think that's going to be the biggest issue going forward to November?
I do. This is really a very quiet recovery, if any. People just don't feel these kinds of successes at the kitchen table in their bank accounts. You know, they're struggling. More people are working more jobs. I mentioned people, per capita income's been on the decline since 1962, household income since the early 2000s. What's happened during that time? Women have also gone to work. So we have a whole lot more people working jobs that are paying a whole lot less.
Besides the economy going forward, what do you think the biggest issue is for Indiana?
I think education. Certainly we are a net exporter of intellectual capital in this state, and we know that we have to build that intellectual capital if we're going to succeed in the economy of really even the present day and the future. So doubling down on things like pre-K, full-day kindergarten for all, creating a statewide legion of readers early on, but then giving students those opportunities too in high school and in different pathways toward career after high school to ensure that they have the opportunities to be successful themselves.
As we move forward to November right now, what's the message that you and John Gregg bring to those undecided voters in Indiana in the middle who are truly undecided? They don't know which way they're going to go. How do you sway them to your side?
Well, I say let's set aside personal ideology, let's set aside social issues, and let's get to work on the things that really matter to make practical differences, positive differences for Hoosiers. You know, we have 1 in 5 children in Indiana suffer from food insecurity. We have 5 counties that are on mandatory needle exchanges. We have 33 counties that have no OBGYN services. We have real problems in Indiana, and it's just time to get practical and stop worrying about all these distractions.
President Obama traveled and returned back to Indiana this week. Your thoughts on the job the president has done over his 2 terms in office?
Well, I think presidents and their administrations are really judged over time, so I look forward to having a few years to really study the impact of much of his work. Certainly, I think we have to look at issues, so the myriad of changes during his presidency to foreign policy, but more importantly, domestic policy and positive things that we felt here in Indiana, like the infusion to save our automobile industry.
A final question for you. If you and John Gregg are elected in November, what do you bring to the role as lieutenant governor going forward? What do you look forward to bringing to that office?
Well, I have a record of passing a lot of bills in a very short time in a bipartisan way, so I just want to work across the aisle with people from every political stripe to get things done that will really impact people's lives for the good.
Christina Hale, thanks so much for being here. Great to see you.
Thanks for having me. Great to see you.
Anytime. And this statement from Republican Governor Mike Pence saying congratulations to Hale for joining the Democratic ticket. We welcome her to the race and look forward to a spirited debate about continuing Indiana's job growth and soaring economic future. Let's turn now to the race for the White House. Hillary Clinton taking direct aim at Donald Trump on foreign policy this week, saying Trump's policies as president could lead America into a war because someone got under his very thin skin. Trump fired back on Twitter saying Clinton no longer has credibility. So what does one of the country's most respected foreign policy experts say about Donald Trump? Our Katie Hines spoke with former Senator Richard Lugar.
Your party's nominee, Donald Trump, is he qualified to lead when it comes to national security?
His experience is very limited in national security. This worries a good number of us, including myself. A person can gain a certain amount of education rapidly and surround himself or herself with people that are really up to it. But for the moment, we live in a very dangerous world. We have very complex relationships, keeping our NATO allies alive at this point, trying to deal with the pivot to Asia, the problems of China and our allies there. Huge dilemmas, obviously, in the Middle East and in Northern Africa, and basic problems really in terms of our budget to keep an armed force that is big enough and is talented enough to go everywhere, to have the backup that they need. Now, maybe Mr. Trump or others will speak to those problems in due course in the campaign. Thus far, that has not been the case. It is not enough to talk about isolationism or building walls or throwing people out or what have you. This is almost totally irrelevant to the dangers that we face, leaving aside such technical problems as cybersecurity, where we can see all of our works gummed up here without any physical attack. And plus terrorism, the nuclear material that is still in 24 nations, some of it not as well guarded as it should be. These are things that very much concern me, and I think many persons involved in foreign policy.
Would you go as far as to say that Donald Trump is dangerous when it comes to national security?
No, I'm not going to say anyone is dangerous. I always believe that there are possibilities for education, for study, for coming to grips with really what the world is. But this is what he will still need to do.
Is he someone you can support?
Well, I'm not going to make any comment about the fall. I'm going to wait to see really how this campaign shapes up.
What do you think, I know you touched on cybersecurity, what is the greatest terror threat facing our country?
Well, currently, I would suspect that it would be a dirty bomb. By that I mean some nuclear material conveyed in some way and exploded in a major city that kills a lot of Americans, that makes a very demonstrative effort on behalf of some terrorist group or terrorist agenda. There could be other problems down the trail, but that one is the most immediate one, I would say.
Turn now to another issue on the November ballot in Marion County, raising your taxes to pay for mass transit. You're going to be asked whether or not you approve an income tax increase to support service upgrades to Indigo. But can you afford it? It's the question we put to Indy Chamber President and CEO Michael Huber, who supports the project.
Joining us now is the President and the CEO of the Indy Chamber, Michael Huber. Welcome to the program. The transit plan, is it necessary?
We think it's absolutely necessary, as do the majority of our members in business. It's too great an opportunity to improve our economic competitiveness, and what we mean by that is we do a really poor job getting people to work in central Indiana compared to cities that we compete against like Nashville, Tennessee, Portland, Oregon, Austin, Texas. We want to compete against the best, and to do that we need to provide people with a wide range of options to get to work, not just rely on the car.
And when you say you're having a hard time getting people to work, where are they unable to get to?
Yeah, so as our region grows and expands, the types of jobs that we offer grow, and they locate in different places all over the region. And so if you look at commuting patterns across our 9 counties, it looks like spaghetti. Some people live in Indianapolis trying to get out to Hendricks County. A lot of people live in surrounding counties trying to get to downtown Indianapolis. There's so many people who are trying to get to, say, manufacturing and logistics jobs who need a more than 2-hour bus ride with a downtown transfer to get to those jobs. It's really time to modernize the system and provide more options for people to get to work, but not just work, get to health care, get to other amenities.
The perception of our current transit system is not very good.
No.
Whether that's right or wrong. Are you telling me that if we spend millions of dollars on this plan, that it will fix the system?
You never fix the system. It's never enough. But essentially, this system will get us from one of the worst cities in terms of transit coverage to the middle of the pack. The way I like to think about it is this system has been designed over many, many years, nearly a decade, linking population centers, neighborhoods of all income levels with employers, with cultural institutions and hospitals. And so the one thing that we'd like people to focus on is the establishment of the BRT, Bus Rapid Transit. They're these corridors that will have service every 10 minutes on a modern vehicle, Wi-Fi enabled. It's a much different experience than riding a city bus, and we think that's going to attract people of all income levels and get them more conditioned to ride transit, and in some cases ditch their car.
Let's talk money. The mayor of Indianapolis is talking about building a new jail. Citizens Energy and IPL were just given state approval to increase rates to pay for infrastructure.
Yeah.
Can the people of Indianapolis, in light of all of that, afford this latest project?
We believe they can, and this is an area that we've researched quite a bit. We're asking people to pay 0.25% more in their income tax. The average household in Marion County, it'll cost them, around additional $8 a month. Now, that's not insignificant in light of everything that's going on, but to stabilize Indianapolis, we need to attract more residents, and more frequent bus service is going to attract more development, more dense housing, more retail. When you look on the map, you can see the possibility of adding more people and more density in many of these neighborhoods. The other thing, though, is the research suggests today that the fully loaded cost of car ownership for the average person is about $8,000 a year. With service along some of these corridors every 10 minutes, it's going to compel some people to get rid of their cars. In some cases, you'll have families go from 2 vehicles to 1. So a lot of users of the system, we believe, the way it's been designed, are going to save money on their monthly budgets.
What about businesses? Businesses already in our city pay their fair share of taxes, but how much more should businesses, your members, have to pay to sort of bear the responsibility if this is about getting people from to and fro these work sites?
It's something we think about a lot. One thing we want people to keep in mind is with property tax reform and property tax caps, most businesses pay 3 times what the average homeowner pays in property taxes. So the businesses already share a significant burden of local revenues. But there are many ways that businesses can incentivize their employees to use public transit, and we'll certainly encourage as many of our members to do that as possible. Businesses that are committed to sustainability, to reducing the emissions and improving Indianapolis's carbon footprint, we're going to provide them as an organization with a range of options to promote this system to make sure that it gets used and that it's successful.
So the campaign is now underway. Will this be a tough sell?
It polls very well in Indianapolis and Marion County, but we're not going to take anything for granted, and we have a lot of work to do, but we think we will be successful.
Michael Huber, the president and CEO of the Indy Chamber, thank you so much.
Thank you, Raphael.
Come back anytime.
We'll do.
Appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
We are joined by our political insiders, Laura Beck for the Democrats and everyone's favorite conservative commentator, Abdul Hakim Shabazz. President Barack Obama returning to Indiana and Elkhart about 7 years after his first trips here this week to talk about the economy and how far the country has come since the Great Recession. A lot of Republicans, though, jumped on board and criticized the president for taking too much credit. Abdul, do you think he took too much credit in his remarks?
My thing has always been, whether you're president, you get the credit or the blame regardless to what happens. That's always been the rule. But the president really wanted to give credit to somebody, to give credit to the people of Elkhart who have managed to weather these economic
Which he did
storms.
during the
And also energy prices, because RVs consume a lot of gasoline. And when gas prices are $4 a gallon, nobody's going to be buying an RV. And also, I spoke to the RV industry folks this week, and they had a lot of credit for Indiana's bipartisan congressional delegation, both Republicans and Democrats, who've really stood up for the RV industry in Washington, D.C., and also gave a lot of credit to the Pence administration for being friendly to the RV industry down at the State House. So does the president get some credit? Yes. Maybe as much as he'd like to get? Probably not.
I think one of the things, though, that the president did for this speech and for his remarks is he's really setting the tone for this upcoming presidential campaign, and almost as if he's out there being a surrogate for Hillary Clinton, particularly when he started talking about he didn't really say Donald Trump by name, but when he referred to him, and he was talking a lot about how we need to come together on issues around the economy, not so much on these values issues, or quote-unquote values issues, that are really dividing us in a way.
Do you think the president now stays out kind of on the campaign trail from this point on?
Well, I think he is most strong when he is on the campaign trail, and I think that early on in his first administration, we didn't see a lot of him, and I think that he's much more effective when he is out there like that. So I think we'll see more of him out campaigning, and I hope we do.
Abdul, does he have to pick and choose where he goes out on the trail in support of either of these Democratic candidates at this point?
It's always, you don't necessarily want to go everywhere, and sort of you want to be smart and be strategic about it. You maybe go to the places where your nominee isn't as strong, or maybe it's a place that needs the bases to be shored up. So I'd not be surprised to see the American, a lot of urban areas, a lot of cities, reminding African Americans, Latinos, and other minority populations, hey, Donald Trump wants to build a wall and ship people back overseas. So it's important for you to get out and vote. So I can easily see that happening.
Yeah, I think we'll see a lot more of him out in those areas, again, shoring up the base. But I think he also wants to make sure that he is giving that contrast to, do you want more progress, or do you want to take a step in a direction where we may never return from?
Also out on the presidential campaign trail on that topic, at least, wonderful to see former Senator Lugar and hear from him earlier in the show. Surprised by his comments about Donald Trump. Laura?
I'm not necessarily as surprised, because Senator Lugar really is an elder statesman, particularly when it comes to foreign policy. So I'm not surprised to hear what he had to say, but I think that we should listen very carefully to what he has to say. Speaker
Ryan, of course, endorsing Donald Trump's candidacy going forward this past week. Do you think that Senator Lugar does indeed get on board before we get to November?
I doubt that very seriously. I could easily see him be one of those growing number of Republicans who are just skipping the convention altogether. It's like, hey, you guys wanted your nominee, you wanted Donald Trump, you got him, he's yours, you're stuck with it, you deal with it, we want no part of this. We'll go campaign for other Republicans. Yeah. As far as the presidency goes, favorite life in blazing saddles, son, you're on your own.
Well, and I think when we see someone like a Senator Lugar, it makes us, it makes me long for the days where we had that level of bipartisan cooperation in Washington. And I think that he is really giving some, his words may not seem strong, but they're very strong, I think, when he talks about, to me at least, when he talks about Donald Trump and what we need to be careful about.
Let's shift gears now to the race for governor. The economy, of course, the big issue, both of them with their ads already playing about the economy. How big of an issue does pre-K and pre-K funding become now that Governor Pence is pushing for federal funding?
I'll let Laura go first, and then I'll come back with the facts.
Take it away, Laura.
No, you go right ahead. I want to hear your facts.
Well, no, the facts are this. It's really simple.
Your facts.
The facts are really simple. This is also the nice thing about being over the legislature all the time. When Mike Pence tried to start the early pre-K program, he got a lot of pushback from a lot of Republican state senators that were not convinced on spending a whole bunch of money on something that wasn't fully proven and fully tested. They did the pilot program, 2,600 kids, some of the toughest kids to reach in Indiana, now have access to quality early childhood education. By doing that, by doing the pilot program, now the governor can go back to the feds and say, hey, look, now we can be willing to talk and discuss because we have a proven track record. The governor promised the legislature he would not try to expand pre-K until after the pilot. And Laura, you know from working in your days, working with the Obama administration, legislature, your word is all you got. And once you go back on your word, it is very difficult for lawmakers to ever trust you again.
Boy, you really memorized those talking points. I'm so impressed. Wow. I think that the biggest issue here is that 2 years ago, Mike Pence, when he was thinking about running for president and positioning himself, turned down $80 million of a federal grant that would have broadly expanded pre-K. And now, when his campaign is in trouble, he is now going back and saying, yes, we really want this money. Look at what we've done in Indiana. I think he was planning when he was running for president to say, here's what we did the Indiana way. Here's how good it looks. Look at what we've done. But what's happened is there have been thousands of kids who have been shut out of quality pre-K education because he was playing political games. And now, before you interrupt me, he has a television ad talking about all the strides he's made in education because his jobs ad isn't resonating, his bio ads aren't resonating, nothing he's doing is resonating. So now he's got this education ad out there, and he's got to have something to try and back it up.
Laura filibustered to the end. Abdul Hakim Shabazz. Laura Beck, thanks for being here with us.
Anytime.
She knows I was right, so that's all that really
right
needs
now
to be
on
said.
social media, at Twitter, @IndyThisWeek, and our new Facebook page as well.